This week's The Rahman Experience is brought to you by the Jacksonville Free Press newspaper, bringing you quality urban news for more than 30 years. P&P Nutrition and Supplements. Want your summer body? Go to pmpnutrition.com. They'll get you exactly where you need to be. Heart SEO, internet marketing and web design for those who are ready to make their business soar. HeartSEO.com. And now, one of the hottest podcasts in the country. It is The Rahman Experience. Just like on the earth, through death comes life.
There is something in the atmosphere of Edgewater College.
What about vaping and the effects on the lungs? It was a symbol of we can.
Rahman was a man of the city, you hear me?
You're inside The Rahman Experience.
It's the Rahman Experience.
The Rahman Experience.
The knowledge that he dropping, most dismiss and make you curious.
And we can't mess this up, cause you know he gon' be furious.
He bring the news to you, cause it's the truth, ain't no stopping it. Say you didn't know, well here's the proof coming from
Rahman Johnson, ain't no straight out of Compton. Duval County with that weight that we rockin'. Now you tuned in to the
Rahman Experience.
Few technical difficulties. There you go. Some technical difficulties, but here we are. Welcome back to the Rahman Experience. For those of you that are joining, I see we got some people already and some questions going. Thank you. I've been getting your emails and text messages and all that stuff all day, so I'm glad you're here with me inside the experience. It's going to be an iconic show. And I know I say that every time there's going to be an amazing and iconic show, but I'm going to tell you today we've got some really hot folk in the house. Dr. Bruce, who is also my frat brother, and Mikhail Scott. These guys are phenomenal. We're going to be talking all about the COVID-19 vaccine, why it is or is not important, or what's most important about it. We're going to have that entire conversation tonight, and we want your feedback. So do me a favor, share the show, let people know that we're here talking with medical professionals, especially those people in Jacksonville, Florida. Now, I know we have people viewing from all over the country, but especially here in Jacksonville, they'll be having a COVID-19 vaccine pop-up site tomorrow in conjunction with a health fair. It's going to be at the Master's Touch Ministries, 4510 Sutel Drive in Jacksonville. They will have walk-up vaccines, but you can also register at vax904.com. That's vax904.com. But I wanted to give you a chance to ask these medical professionals, what is it about the COVID vaccine? You know, I literally just talked to one of my students who has told me he's not getting vaccinated. But I challenged him, and I wasn't challenging him to make him get vaccinated or to say that he should feel bad about his choice, but it's to make sure he's educated. And that's one of the things I think that the group that's bringing this out of just the goodness of their hearts, Indelible Solutions, they are a contractor, but they're bringing together a great team. And so our conversation tonight will be all about the COVID vaccine and I got to go ahead and take a point of personal privilege. These wonderful Black men that are not toting guns, not selling dope. Well, I don't know, one of them sell dope, but he's selling it in the legal way. You know what I'm saying? You know, but they're not doing bad stuff, but they're really doing it in a way where we can be proud. And so with us having so many instances and talk about African Americans in society, I think this is a way that we can be proud. So we got a great show lined up for you today. Let's talk about what's going on in the news. Most importantly, now I want to share something with you. I got to take a funny moment. Check this out real quick before we get to the show. I'll tell you why I'm going to share this with you.
Mama. The old press tip. Hey, my. Saints, I wish I could be dignified today, but I can't help myself right now. Oh, Jesus. I thank the Lord. I thank him. This is what we've been asking him for, and he released it. It's released now. We are set free. We've been delivered. We're no longer bound. The oppressed have been lifted up. The broken have been put together. Glory to God. Glory to God. Now, come on, shout.
All right, so I know you're wondering why I showed that clip, right? Why did I show that? Why did I show a woman speaking in tongues and talking? Well, that's Mother Johnson. And when I tell you, not my Mother Johnson, that's every Mother Johnson in the church. But we got word last night, breaking news. You know, I like to start each show off with news, breaking news in the community. That's actual footage, though, from Corrine Brown's house last night. Okay, that's my joke. That's my joke for the night. Corrine Brown, the former congresswoman from the 3rd Congressional District in Jacksonville, Florida. And maybe Mikhail, he's a political guru. Maybe we can talk about this a little bit while we're chatting tonight. Congresswoman Brown was convicted of several counts of tax evasion and fraud and just a plethora of other things. Well, an appeals court vacated the entire conviction because of a violation of the 6th Amendment. I literally, in my nerd moment, read the 98-page opinion on the appeals court. It was actually really good, and it really gave some insight. So Corrine Brown is now has not been convicted. She is just the Corrine Brown that she was before. So it's really interesting to see how things are going to work and what the Democratic Party is lining up to do. Speaking of the Democratic Party, some breaking news too. There are people still signing up and pushing to run after the governor, Ron DeSantis, made the decision as to when the seat will be, the election will be held to fill the seat of deceased Congressman Alcee Hastings, who you may remember died just a few months ago. So there's still a mad scramble, which leaves some people leaving the Florida Senate seeking election to the United States House of Representatives. And last but not least, the COVID-19 numbers in Florida, although they've stabilized, there's still a marked threat of COVID-19. One of the things that is some of the numbers that I'm looking at from the not only Florida Department of Health, but Johns Hopkins University say that the amount of spread that's happening are between adults. And this is one of the things we see in Florida, between the ages of 26 and 45. Now that should make you think, because those are the same, the group that we're in, all of us today, people who are saying that they don't want to take the COVID vaccine for whatever reason. So that's why we're going to get to the bottom of it tonight, why you don't want to take the vaccine, why it's important to take the vaccine. And if you have questions, we'll answer them. Now, don't forget, I'll be checking social media. You can join me, of course, Rahman J, on Twitter. That's twitter.com/RahmanJ. You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/RahmanJFans. Won't be checking Instagram, but you can follow us there, Instagram.com/RahmanJ. In just a moment, we will be joined by Dr. Bruce James and, of course, Mikhail Scott from Vax 904 to get your questions answered about the vaccine. The Rahman Experience continues. We'll be right back.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans, and soon they will be available to everyone.
This vaccine means hope. It will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
I want to go back to work, and I want to be able to move around.
To visit with Michelle's mom, to hug her and see her on her birthday.
You know, I'm really looking forward to is going to opening day in Texas Ranger Stadium with a full stadium.
We've lost enough people, and we've suffered enough damage.
In order to get rid of this pandemic, it's important for our fellow citizens to get vaccinated.
I'm getting vaccinated because we want this pandemic to end as soon as possible.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
So roll up your sleeve and do your part.
This is our shot.
Now it's up to you.
Thanks so much. All right. So it's tonight we'll be talking to members of Vax 904, two gentlemen who have been working hard to make sure that public health is the name of the game here in Duval County. The first one is Mikhail Scott. He's the director of Vax 904, the project director. He's been working with the Florida Department of Health and has had myriad experience in both the state and federal levels of government. He is a family rattler. They strike and strike and strike again. And of course, joining him is another rattler, Vax 904 medical director, Dr. Bruce James, the founder of Health Care Equity Solutions. He's from Bainbridge, and he's a dual HBCU grad, Tuskegee as well as FAMU. They bring a wealth of experience to the table, but most importantly, the questions can get answered. And we want you to log on. I'll be running a banner down below in a second. If you want to log on to be a part of the conversation, tiny URL, you can leave your comments in the chat, and we'll make sure those questions get answered. By the way, do me a favor, and I'll be reminding you during the show, share, and that way other people will know what's going on and can get their questions answered. But tinyurl.com/Rahman Live. That's tinyurl.com/Rahman Live, and we will get you in the show. Without any further ado, please welcome my homies, Dr. James and Mr. Scott. Gentlemen, welcome to the experience. How are you?
Hey, what's going on? How are you today? Good to have you.
Amazing. So you guys are on site already. We talked earlier on Saturday, tomorrow, you'll be having an event at the Master's Touch Ministry. So you're on site getting everything ready now.
Yeah, so we actually we're at our Legacy Ministries location right now.
Legacy. Okay, that's another location.
Yeah, so we took shop at Legacy Ministries, not to get confused. The event tomorrow, May 8th, is at Master's Touch, 4510 Sutel Drive in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Currently, we're here at our other location where we've been running our outreach campaign out of, where our field organizers come in and get their supplies and everything in the morning. But Dr. James and I are closing up for the day.
So this is an all-out campaign. You said we're field organizers, and I think of Barack Obama running for president. I think of running a political campaign. How is this different from a political campaign, and why is it so important that we run it in this way?
So, you know, and the fact that you mentioned that, right, and you caught that, it is being ran a lot like a political campaign, except in this instance, the candidate is the COVID vaccine. And so what we've been doing is going door to door, doing canvassing. We have an entire outreach team. We actually had 150 outreach specialists at one point that were going out into the community, high traffic areas, tabling at premier events, going to concerts, right? You said the 25 to 45-year-olds are the ones that are highest with hesitancy. So we're making sure that we're going and meeting them where they are, right? We're in the community. We're sharing fact-based information. Dr. James has a team of medical experts that are working around the clock, taking phone calls for people that might have hesitancy. And so the event tomorrow is really just a way to showcase the 30-day initiative that we just wrapped up here in Duval County, and also allow people to come out and ask some really important questions about this vaccine.
Gotcha. And speaking of that, I mean, there are people coming in now, and I'm going to be hitting you guys with some hard questions because the vaccine has become incredibly political. I want to say thanks to Jay. Jay in Florida says it's extremely important for everyone to get vaccinated, and that it is. This has become political, but I want to ask you, Doc, you understand, I guess, the political implication, the medical implication as well. And we're going to get to you, Mikhail, because I know that's your bailiwick. But specifically, Doc, why are people making this thing so political when it's simple? We see people getting sick and dying. Why do you think that is as a medical professional?
So for me, one thing that I will say, it's extremely important for us, culturally for us, to remove politics from it. Although the world around us is trying to force politics and trying to make it a partisan issue, this isn't a partisan issue, truly. The fact at hand is our culture, the fact at hand is there's a pandemic. Our culture is dying 4 times more than any other race out there. So for us, that's not partisan. That's a culture issue. We should all accept that and take that on as a culture issue. And just it's a few things that goes into that. It's a few like comorbidities that we have, pre-existing conditions that we have that, you know, puts us and sets a perfect storm for this virus to affect us at alarming rates higher than our counterparts. So for us, it shouldn't be partisan. And I would say to our community and our culture around us, no matter how partisan they try to make it, no matter how partisan the world tries to make it, let's focus on what's important. And that's getting educated around the facts and getting our community vaccinated.
Absolutely. Mikhail, you have worked for years in politics on both the federal and state levels. I mean, what do you think we are contributing this polarization of the vaccine being a partisan issue or political issue? What are we contributing it to?
You know, unfortunately, like Dr. James said, a lot of times things that should not be political end up getting wrapped in it, right? Because there's a lot of things that deal with state funding. There's a lot of things that deal with people's personal stances, and they get tied up in a whirlwind where you have people that are denying fact-based information, right? The CDC has told us that wearing masks is something that's going to be able to help protect people and keep you more protected than not wearing masks. But we see there's been a lot of folks. The previous administration was very big on denying the fact that masks could actually help people, keep people safe. So what we need to understand is that a lot of times politics and personal, while they are mixed, you have to take a step back and remove yourself from that situation, because like we said, we're talking about public health. And while around the media, you're hearing a lot about, you know, the governor and other governors and states, but the real underlying issue is this funding for COVID vaccine is being made available to everybody for free. It's not a black thing. It's not a white thing. It's a pandemic. So it's global. And if you've been hearing about India, and you've been hearing about some of these other third world countries where there's not a vaccine in sight, that needs to let you know, like, we have access, we have privilege. And that privilege will not be there forever, because a recent AP article actually spoke to how the Biden administration is starting to reallocate these resources, right? Out of states that aren't prioritizing them, out of states that aren't necessarily embracing the fact that they need to encourage folks to do this. And so what you'll have is a situation where it's free now, but then it gets reallocated to a different state. And all of those pop-up sites that you've been seeing for the last several weeks disappear. And then summer hits and everybody's at the cookout, everybody's at the block party, at the pool party, you know, down in Miami, everywhere else having a great time. And then that takeoff happens. In India, just yesterday, there was 400,000 people that were infected by COVID. And granted, India has a much larger population, but that just shows you how contagious this disease is.
And no oxygen tanks and all of these other things that make getting COVID just that more dangerous in a place like India. You're right.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's the main thing, right? This is a public health matter. This is not politics. This is not political. And anybody that's a mother or a father or an aunt or has a child or someone else that they love, you need to take a step back from the television and go check out some articles that are corroborated, that have been fact-based and fact-checked, and make that best decision for yourself how to proceed.
Let me ask you this, Doc. One of the questions I get over and over, literally just got off the phone having the conversation with a student as we were talking about it's the end of the year, of course, at Edward Waters College. Student tells me, well, I don't know what's in the vaccine. So let's break it down. We got two vaccines. One's an mRNA vaccine and one's a dormant adenovirus. It's a dormant adenovirus, right? Which is the common cold. Break down for me with Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson, what's in the vaccine and how could it adversely affect the body?
Okay, so I'll first and foremost to my younger population that's out there that's listening, in 2021, we're at what we call the information society. We're an information world. Information is for the first time ever at our fingertips. So I feel like as a younger generation, because that question that young man in your class posed to you, that wasn't just his question, right? That was his friend's question, and children across the world has that same question. But I would challenge them, you know, before it even comes to here, before it even comes to us, because we're in a world of information. Do that research. That question right there is all over the internet, but it's good for us. It's good to have these platforms so they can hear from somebody like myself who's qualified, who's studied these types of things. So here we go. So when we're talking about Pfizer and Moderna, they're most closely related. They're created with what we call the mRNA sequencing technology. Number one, I tell everybody, I kind of get excited about this. mRNA technology is an absolute breakthrough in healthcare. Let's just say start there. This isn't something we should be scared of. This is something that everybody in the healthcare world is like, woohoo, we finally we got it. We got it.
Figured it out. Yeah.
We got it going and we got it going good. So what it looks like is I'll break down what we know as vaccines in terms of a flu vaccine, because everybody is familiar with the flu. When the flu vaccine first came out, and you can still hear some of the older people say, oh, I'm not taking a flu vaccine because it'll make me sick. It gets me sick. That thing gives you the flu. We've heard our grandmas and grandpas say that.
Yes.
Well, in their defense, when the flu vaccine first came out, they're exactly correct. You did. It took a little bit of the flu. It inserted a little bit of the flu into your body. It allowed your immune system to produce an immune response to that flu virus, and now your immune system create what we call antibodies, and that gives you the immunity to fight the flu for that season.
Why is it better for me to get it that way than to just catch it?
So that was early on. That was early flu. So years passed. Around the early 90s, we progressed. We graduated to what technology advanced, and we graduated to what we call now, and we still use this to this day. And this is what the flu shot we take every year. It's called the inactivated flu shot. So now this is not a weakened form of the flu. This is an inactivated form of the flu. So now we inject that into the body, and it allows the body to produce the immune response that we need and create the antibodies. So what we're doing with COVID, we're not giving a weakened form of the virus. We're not giving an inactive form of the virus. we're giving an mRNA sequence of the virus. So what that is, RNA is basically the contract that comes in your body and tells the DNA what to do. We're at a point in technology and in science where we can take a RNA sequence, inject that mRNA sequence of COVID, inject that into the body, and basically trick the body into thinking that it is COVID and produce those same immune responses, those same antibodies that makes you, immune to the sickness portion of the disease. So that is an absolute breakthrough. mRNA sequence and mRNA technology is really good. And when people say, oh my God, it's so new, that's wrong. We've been using the same technology in the Ebola virus, Ebola vaccinations in Africa for the past 2 years. So it was kind of a perfect storm when COVID presented with the technology being studied already for us to utilize it. We utilized it and it worked. Not to mention the charge was led by a person from our community. So like it worked. So it was a woohoo moment for health.
The medical community as a whole.
Yeah.
So wait a minute, but you're telling me about the mRNA technology, which is brand new. Number one, let's just go ahead and get it out there. It does not change your DNA. There's no such thing as DNA resequencing in the body with this vaccine. Can't happen, right?
Even more, in addition to that, not only does it not change your DNA, but if you think about it, we have to store these vaccines at extremely cold temperatures.
Zero.
That's to keep the vaccines, that's to keep their shelf life and to preserve their shelf life. Well, once they get into your body at those warmer temperatures, it denatures the vaccine.
So it gives it the information and goes away.
And it goes away. It denatures it. It denatures it completely. So
go ahead.
No. I was just about to say, make reference to how the heat in the body just denatures the proteins and they essentially dissolve in your body.
So you give me, because that was one of the things that my student asked, and I said, yeah, it goes away. Like it does what it needs to do, gives the encoded information to the cells and leaves. It's done. Yeah. It's done, right?
Yes.
So you just talked about mRNA, but you didn't say anything about the adenovirus. Talk to me about that, because to me, the efficacy of Johnson & Johnson seems to be a little more, and the $1 million question is which one's better? I know you can't endorse. I know as a doctor and as somebody who is in the medical profession, that you're not, you're just giving your opinion on it. So we're not going to hold you to it and say everybody should go run out and get one or the other. Tomorrow, I think they're giving Pfizer, right, Mikhail? Tomorrow's Pfizer?
Pfizer.
Yeah, tomorrow's Pfizer, which is a 2-dose regimen, just like Moderna is a 2-dose regimen. The adenovirus, though, on the Johnson & Johnson side, does not require sub-zero temperatures.
Right.
Still has a pretty decent efficacy rate, and it is pretty effective against the South African variant, which is that, and the UK variant seem to be the dominant variants. Right. But it also is a 1-dose regimen, which means that those people who are senior citizens and can't get to the doctor, don't have transportation, homeless, whatever the case may be, it's a way to get them inoculated against the virus. So walk us through the adenovirus version, which is J&J, it's J&J and
right. So you'll see with the adenovirus, because it's a 1-dose, and I mean, if we think about it just logically, because it's 1-dose, that's where you see the efficacy variations, right? You get the J&J, and I believe the efficacy on the mild to moderate is around 40%, and then the efficacy on the actual severe disease is around 65-67%. So if you think about it, it's 1-dose. That kind of makes sense. In terms of the actual compound that goes into making it, it's more so than the mRNA sequencing, it's more like the inactivated flu that we see today. So it's not, once again, you're not getting actual COVID. You're getting a weak inactivated version or an activated sequence of that virus, and your body's picking it up, your body's recognizing it, and it's allowing your immune system to start producing antibodies to fight against it. So I'll take it a step further. If I had to go down the line and say, so I would recommend the Johnson & Johnson because it protects more. Because it protects less against the severe, its efficacy against the severe.
100% against death, against morbidity, right?
Right. But if I'm an elderly person and I had to choose, I would lean more towards Pfizer or Moderna because they have a higher efficacy against the severe disease. Now, the severe disease is what we're seeing that alludes to death, that prefaces death for our community the most. If I'm younger, if I'm a little more healthy, if I'm an adolescent or teenager, or if my immune system is competent, I would feel safe taking the Johnson & Johnson, no problem. One dose, I have the immune system, the immune system strength to actually fight it. So it's one of those things. If you're old, if you're elderly and you are immunocompromised, you should definitely, if you're gonna get the vaccine, if you're gonna get it, you should want to lean towards the Pfizer or Moderna. But if you just don't want to do the 2-shot regimen, definitely go with the Johnson & Johnson, because some coverage is better than no coverage at all.
Gotcha. All right. And so, but I'm hearing you say, if it were you or your family, I'm not gonna put you on the spot and ask you,
right.
But J&J seems to be something, because right now everybody's talking about blood clots. And when I look at and we've had this conversation when I asked you to come on the show, when we look at the numbers, the statistical insignificance of and not to say that people are insignificant, it's not, I'm talking as a scientist, the people that had an adverse reaction, blood clot, to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine were statistically insignificant to the entirety of the study, according to the Journal of Medicine, correct?
You're talking about 7 million, Rahman, 7 million vaccinated, 6 with adverse reaction.
6 people.
6 people.
Out of 7 million.
Right. So to allude back to what we started this conversation on, if this wasn't such a partisan issue, that we would have never known as a country about that. That type of clinical insignificance happens with, I can almost stand behind, with any drug in a clinical trial. You're going to get 6 adverse reactions. You're going to get 6 rare adverse reactions with any drug across the board.
Let me ask you this, Mikhail, just to bring you back, kind of go back on the other side of the conversation. So what was it, indelible? Tell us a little bit about indelible. What was it that made, I know one of your passions is public health, and you've had a very extensive resume. You've worked as a legislative director, communications person for Congress, even with the Department of Agriculture with Commissioner Nikki Fried. What was it about this that made you want to say, I want to get involved to make sure that people, especially people of color in underserved communities, know and understand what's available to them?
And that's the perfect question, right? And I think that's a great segue. First of all, Indelible Business Solutions is a minority-owned business firm, right? So our CEO, CFO, COO are all African Americans. The founders are African Americans, and we have a very diverse professional group of folks that we're pulling from these similar communities, right? They look like us, they talk like us. We're diverse, Latin, Asian, Hispanic, across the board. So number one, Indelible is very clear on diversity and equity within our corporate ethos. And we've been working with the state of Florida and numerous other states around emergency preparedness, natural disasters, as well as emergency management. So we got the call to action to come down in Jacksonville because our headquarters is here in Jacksonville, but we were actually originally working on an Educate, Vaccinate initiative in the state of Virginia. So Dr. James and I were both in Virginia at first, working across the entire state, working with the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. And so what made me so passionate about it, because like you said, my background is in public health, issues related to food insecurity, housing insecurity, health equity, affordable health care. These are all issues that, generally speaking, plague the African American community. And so understanding that my people, our people, are at a higher risk for COVID, and we have been dying at a higher rate. Statistics show that about 1 in 800 African Americans contract COVID-19. It's the highest contraction rate of any other race in the US. So number one, that's a red flag. Then we're the lowest ethnic group outside of these smaller, very minute percentages of ethnic groups. We're the smallest one out of all these other groups across the US. So we're getting infected at a higher rate. We are dying at a higher rate, but we have a lower population. And we're also the highest for vaccine hesitancy, and also the people that have a lot of misinformation running rampant through our communities. So we decided, as a firm that can speak to our communities, right, that understand the plight of the Black community, that understand what it's like to be a Black man or a Black woman, in a state where we're not always prioritized. And I know that's another reason why people are very hesitant to get this vaccine, because they've never been a priority, right? We deal with issues of health inequity. We deal with issues of police brutality. We deal with issues that other ethnic groups don't have to see on a regular basis. And so for me, it only made sense that I start in my community. We have to start in our community, because a lot of times folks don't see people like me, FAMU graduate, public health ambassador, FAMU graduate, doctor of pharmacy, right? Those aren't necessarily the narratives that we're so used to. And so it's important for people to understand that it's not a conspiracy. And for anyone that wants to do their research, we welcome that. We say, come out to our event tomorrow from 5 to 8, right? From 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we have medical doctors. Dr. James is going to be there. We have folks that can give you fact-based information so that you make the best decision for you and your family. Nobody.
We're going to talk we're going to talk for just a moment about what's going on tomorrow. I want you guys to stay tuned, because I really want to go deep into why it was important and why we're partnering with churches and what to expect tomorrow, because it ain't just come get stuck. And we also want to talk a little bit about, I guess we need to come up with a title for it, Mikhail. Jack's embarrassment. I don't know, because there are these people that are trying to embarrass people for not getting the vaccine. And as you know, with conversation with me, my thing is not to embarrass a person. My thing is not to even force you to make the vaccine. But I believe that, kind of like that clip in Malcolm X, if you show people the good information, remember the clip when Elijah Muhammad had the glass of water? I don't know, but he said, if you give people garbage, they take garbage. But if you give them the good stuff, they'll take that too. So we're going to talk about that on the other side. The Rahman Experience continues. Remember, you can join the conversation. tiny.url / Rahman Live. I got to see my own website. tinyurl / Rahman Live. Or you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, Rahman J. We'll be right back in just a moment with Dr. Bruce James, as well as Mikhail Scott. The Rahman Experience continues.
In the past few months, we've shown up for each other.
Over and over again.
And as we continue to navigate COVID-19,
we still need you to be there for each other.
By doing one simple thing: wear a mask.
Even if you think you're low risk,
a mask will help protect you and others.
It's pretty simple. I wear a mask to protect my teammates,
myself, and you. So wear a mask to protect yourself and others. Let's stop coronavirus together.
In these uncertain times, you need to think beyond yourself. Wash your hands. Wash with soap. Wash them for your fathers, your mothers, your grandparents, your friends, for everyone. Wash your hands for them.
This is the Rahman Experience. Welcome back. We're here with Dr. Bruce James and Mikhail Scott from Vaccinated, for a group or a project of Indelible Solutions, where they are working to empower and educate the Jacksonville community on vaccinations. I know we got people watching from all over the country, so if you have questions, just leave them in the chat. We'll make sure that Dr. James gets, or Mikhail, whomever, gets to those questions. Also, you can join us at tinyurl / Rahman Live. It'll come up again. So let's talk on Saturday. You're partnering with the Church Pantry. Tell me why it was important for you to partner with a church as a community organization, the churches that are involved, and then what to expect on tomorrow for those people in the Jacksonville area.
Absolutely. So what I'll say, the decision to partner with the Church Pantry Coalition is twofold, right? From the first perspective is this, right? When we came into the Jacksonville community, although our firm is headquartered here in Jacksonville, we understood that for an initiative like this, when it comes down to people needing to have an influencer or a leader to look to, we know that the church has always been a cornerstone in communities and been there for underserved folks to provide resources, to provide guidance, to be a listening ear, but also a respected expert, right, on some of these issues. And so the Church Pantry Coalition is actually an initiative that was created, even before we discovered them, focused on health and wellness. So the Church Pantry is actually, it's a 10-group organization. They actually have 10 other churches that they've recently brought into this to make 20 churches and faith-based groups around Duval County that provide food resources daily across the week, right? So they're doing two to three pantry offerings across the month, across these different churches where folks are able to go and get food, resources that they can take home for free. The pandemic has really put a lot of people in a bad situation economically, and food access has been one of the skyrocketing social impacts that our communities are facing. So we wanted to be with them because they knew that there was an existing need within their communities. They know the faces of the people that are coming to get this food on a regular basis. And when you look at social determinants of health, well, what do I mean by that? Well, food insecurity, or the lack of having healthy food, is a social determinant of health that is a public health risk factor, right? And so from our perspective, and Rahman, I'll let you know my computer's about to die. So if we cut off on you, we might have to speed it up. But
that's fine. We got a whole show. But yeah, come on, tell me, quick.
Man,
and wait, let me stop. Even if your computer dies, you got your phone. So we'll switch out. We'll make sure you're good.
Absolutely. So when I talk about social determinants of health, food insecurity is one of them, but then housing insecurity, health insecurity, financial insecurity. These are all issues that plague the Black community. You can go for miles and see 5 liquor stores, but not see a grocery store. Yes. You can go for miles and see an Amscot, Western Union, Cash Advance, but not see a Chase, Bank of America, or Wells Fargo, right? So we're always at a disadvantage in these communities, and these churches are bringing folks together around a great cause. And so our organization, Indelible, this is actually an Indelible Gives project. So we're going to not only be working with the church to identify the need for vaccines, we're also going to be making a contribution to the church so that they can continue to do the good work that they're doing to provide these food resources to people here in the Jacksonville community.
And you're also partnering before you get out here. I know you have to switch devices, but you're partnering with elected officials. I know Congressman Al Lawson is a part of things. Talk to the good new Al Lawson, a frat brother, and also State Representative Tracy Davis, who is going to be, you're doing a community announcement as part of it tomorrow. And you got some other stuff, right? Can you talk real quick about the other stuff you got going on? I know there's like line dancing and health exams and prostate awareness. What's all the stuff happening tomorrow?
All right, great. And by the way, we're charged up now, so we're good to go.
Oh, okay. See, you see how we do this? You see
tomorrow's gonna be.
Hold on, I gotta go ahead and say it because Noops are always prepared. I'm sorry, this is just I gotta put it up. You know, I'm sorry. I was so excited when I found out Dr. B. When I found out Dr. B was a bro, I was like, we're always prepared. There it is. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Most definitely. So, but yeah, tomorrow's going to be amazing, right? So we have not only an opportunity to get vaccinated, if you haven't already done so, you'll be able to get some really great information from the health vendors that we're going to have out there. We'll be providing resources about, insurance for people that might be uninsured. There's going to be information about other resources that you can get for seniors, individuals that might want to know more about their own personal health. We'll have folks out there doing screenings, blood pressure, glucose. We're going to have a lot of opportunities for people to actually learn more about the vaccine. Dr. James is going to be doing a Vax talk and be taking questions throughout the day based on people that might have hesitancy. So if there are questions that folks have, bring those questions to us. We'll be answering them live throughout the event. But we also have a handful of vendors that are coming out, like Dedicated Health, WellCare, Humana will be there talking about some of the opportunities that they have for folks that might be underinsured. We also have a lot of other interesting things like a Zumba instructor who will be out there and getting folks moving and grooving at a certain point. There'll be a live DJ throughout the entire day. In the morning, Praise 107.9, Michael Cobb will be out there leading us off and getting us started. Leading into the afternoon, we're going to have iHeartRadio represent 93.3 as well as 101.5 with Dr. DJ Doom. So it's going to be an opportunity for you to not only come out to learn, but also have a good time and enjoy yourself, right? One of our taglines is let's get back to normal. And while everybody is ready to rush back to the picnics and rush back to the pool parties, I'm ready for Memorial Day weekend, but I'm getting my second vaccination shot tomorrow. So I'll be fully vaccinated, and I know Dr. James has already done so. So we're encouraging people, it's not about you, right? It's about your mom. You want to go spend that time with your mom on Mother's Day, but you haven't been vaccinated, right? You want to go see your 85-year-old grandmother, but you haven't been vaccinated. And at the end of the day, people need to understand that that's not something to play with. It's a very dangerous game. And there are a lot of folks and a lot of stories that we've personally heard here on the ground. I actually have a woman who works on our campaign, and I won't say her name, but she had a situation where her family, elderly cousins, ended up passing away, about 5 or 6 people in her family, because they went to a church that was a smaller church congregation. None of them have been vaccinated. And this was prior to the vaccination being available, right? Because if they had that, that might have been a different situation for them or a different story. But literally one of those individuals didn't know that they had COVID, was asymptomatic, went to church. And then in a few days, 2 or 3 people are sick. By the end of the week, 5 of them are sick. By the end of that week, 5 of them have passed away. And that's not a story that I'm making up to try to, win over somebody or make you think. That's a real story that one of the individuals working on this campaign personally told me. And there's many other stories of people that have been affected, whether it's you lost your job because of the pandemic shutdown, because of its seriousness, or you got sick, or your mother or someone else was sick. I personally had COVID. So tomorrow is all about education. Dr. James is going to be there answering questions, and we're not peer pressuring anybody to feel bad. There is no question that is not smart enough or that's too dumb or not the right way. Bring them on. And what we do say is that if you do come with the open mind. We don't want to have anybody antagonizing folks. Like, we're not here to start a ruckus or start a fray within our community, right? We're here to build on it. And so we plan tomorrow to provide an amazing event. We're going to have food trucks. Anybody that gets vaccinated, that comes out, or if you have been vaccinated, we're actually going to have some special items out there. You'll be able to get a plate on us as a part of what we're doing. And we're want folks to come out and have a good time.
And it's going to be a great event. And I'm going to ask you some of the tough questions here. So there are folks who are saying, I got a couple questions coming in from you, Doc, for you. First, you, Mikhail. So someone has said here on social media, why are they trying so hard to get me to take the vaccine? They said, I don't trust it. The question is, why are they? Why are we bribing people and asking people? It's not a bribe, but I want to ask that tough question. What is it? Why are we saying this is so necessary? And community organizations like Indelible, like Vax 904 coming out with the food truck, with all those things. Why is that important? Why are you trying to push people to get it?
I'll let Dr. James go, but let me give you a statistic real quick. Sure. It says already more than 56% of American adults have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. That's over 105 million people. 100 million people, yeah. So when someone says, why are they trying to get me to do it? It's a pandemic. It's a global pandemic. And so I say that with all seriousness and with all respect. It's not that we're targeting you specifically, but as a whole. In order for us to get over the pandemic as a country, we need herd immunity. So it's not just enough for the people that wanted to run off and get it, because those 105 million, probably even more than that at this point, yeah, they've gotten vaccinated. And they're at a position where once we get to about 70% of people being vaccinated, that's when they say that we can reach a herd immunity where people are safer. So that's really what it's all about. We need collectively for everyone, or at least a very high number of people, to get vaccinated so that we don't have another situation like what's going on in India, when after weeks and months of calm, slow progression of contracting that virus, in an instant, it went up 400,000 people, right? And then the following day, if you go and check this article out, they had the next highest increase in infections. This is all fact-based. This is across the world. This isn't in Jacksonville. This isn't in where I'm from in Manatee County. This is across the globe. So it's important for everyone to get vaccinated, or a high majority, so that we can keep those around us safe.
Interesting. And I'm looking at some of the questions. They are coming in fast and furious. Your question, Doc, this person said, hey, I've had COVID already. I thought I had antibodies. Why do I need to take the vaccine?
So that person there, I don't have their name. They're just like me. I had COVID. I contracted COVID late November last year.
And how hard, for both you guys said, I got to stop you there as you answer the question. How hard was it? We all in the country had a chance to see Chris Cuomo doing the news, my brother in journalism, and I know Chris, broadcasting from his basement with COVID. We saw the ups and downs. How did it affect you? Black men, maybe, is it different? How was it mild?
Yeah, so luckily I did experience it. I experienced fever. I experienced the sweats, the random sweats. And I will say this about COVID, and the healthcare world is saying this as well. COVID is affecting everybody a little differently. It's a few different things, or a few different variations of what people are seeing when they're affected. For me personally, I had fever, I had chills, I had the sweats, but mostly I just had no taste, no smell. couldn't taste anything or couldn't smell anything for about 3 weeks.
And then I guess mine was similar to that, right? I experienced no taste, no smell, but before that hit, I went through about a 3-day period of extreme fatigue, chills, night sweats, fever. Well, actually, I didn't have a fever, but I was experiencing those adverse, sweating at night, could barely stay up, extremely tired. And then after that went away, I lost my sense of taste and smell for about a week and a half. But then I was having severe headaches. So I was having...
It wasn't debilitating, but it certainly did stop the way you were living.
For sure. It gets in the way of everyday life. But as a caveat, my mother had it, and she has diabetes, and she's older than I am, obviously elderly, in her 60s. And so she's a senior, and she was affected by it for 8 weeks. So she was at work. Wow. And she was in the house with my 73-year-old father, right? So she had to self-quarantine herself to protect him. So it just goes back to the saying, right? It's not about you.
It's about those around in your orbit.
Right.
All right, so let's go back. And sorry to interrupt, but I had to ask. Let's go back to that question. So antibodies versus, hey, had COVID. How long with the antibodies? Why am I taking the vaccine if I've already had it so my body knows what it is?
Right. So what that did was that prompted me to actually do some research myself on that, on just that. So what we came up with is once you've had COVID, yes, you are absolutely correct. You have what they call natural antibodies. You have some natural immunity built up right now. From taking the vaccine, that takes that natural immunity. With that natural immunity, that's about 40% effective. That takes that 40% and raises that to about 75% after your first dose alone. So those natural antibodies that you have, that you had just from having the virus alone, you can get a first dose of vaccine, and that takes your the efficacy of you being definitely sick or definitely ill from this virus from 40% to 75%. So that's one reason you should get it. And once you take that second dose, that puts you up into the 90, 95, 94, 95 percentiles when we're talking about efficacy. So that's why you should get it. And those natural antibodies, we're seeing that they only last about 3 to 6 months that they're saying right now. We don't know. So it definitely would behoove all of us to have those natural antibodies boosted by the actual vaccination.
Having the vaccine, gotcha. Because it still takes, even after the second dose for the 2-dose vaccine,
you need about 14 days.
14 days after the second dose, or even the 1 dose, it still takes 14 days after that to be integrated into the body, right?
Right. You have to remember, we have to allow the body time to produce these antibodies. None of this stuff is instantaneous. The body sees it, the body comes privy to it, and then the immune system has to work and make those antibodies so you can start experiencing that immunity.
Let's forecast some bad news, unfortunately. And Mikhail, I want you to put on or look in your crystal ball in an unfortunate side. So what you said earlier is scary. I shared with you an article I saw in the Associated Press that said that it was what does this article say? Associated Press that the United States government would start taking dollars and or funding away from the cities that weren't getting the COVID vaccine because doses are going to waste. And we got people like India who would be happy to have a vaccine, right? So let's say, what happens if people in the city that you're in now, Jacksonville, don't, and by the way, before you answer that question, I want to remind everybody we are live right now on all these social platforms. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all of the platforms. Do me a favor, wherever you are, thank you guys for tuning in. Share this broadcast with other people. You can leave a message in the comment section. We'll get your question answered by these two experts on community health with the COVID-19 vaccine. Of course, Dr. Bruce James and Mikhail Scott. Make sure that you are sharing this, but ask your questions. You can also join us live on the air at tinyurl.com//Rahman Live. Okay, so the question again, back to you, when we are experiencing, because I keep getting all the questions, people saying, I don't want that in me. I don't want that in me. And Mikhail, I want you to look and say, if you got that many people saying that, and they aren't getting the vaccine, what then happens?
Okay.
What happens to the vaccination sites? What happens to the COVID testing sites? All of those things. What happens if people are saying, well, I don't care, I'm going to just drink my herbal tea?
Right. So this is the truth, right? From a very real governmental relations perspective. Currently, the Biden administration is making an announcement, and they have made this announcement that they will start to reallocate resources. So what does the reallocation of resources look like? Well, right now they're going to be focusing on communities that are still suffering from hesitancy, that might be less likely to go out. You have those groups of people that just haven't prioritized it, and it's not necessarily that they don't want to get it. Maybe they haven't had time. Maybe they're working 2 or 3 jobs, which is understandable and definitely the reality for a lot of people. So they haven't been able to take that time. And then you have adolescents who might be like 12 to 15, because there's going to be legislation coming out very soon that's going to allow for the Pfizer vaccine to be utilized in students that are younger than 16, where it is now. They're actually working to get it for, I believe, starting around 7 years old. And I believe Dr. James can probably speak a little bit, 2 to 11. So when you think about where they're looking, right, there's still a demand right now. But let's look at it 6 months from now, hypothetically. And this is not just hypothetical in the sense that it can't happen. It's just when it will happen. When these resources are allocated, you have something that's called vaccine diplomacy. What does vaccine diplomacy look like? Well, if you take a look across the world, in China, places like China, you might be hearing the fact that they're working and bartering with third world countries like India, who have no vaccines in sight, nowhere in their country. Not even the richest people can access them in their own country. And so they're bargaining with these countries to get certain political agreements, certain international affairs agreements, so that they can have a better position in those countries from a policy and from a state and international perspective. And now they're shipping those vaccines off. And as a player in the national and international space, China and the US are always and have been rivals, right? So you'll start to see the US say, hey, well, if we don't have states that want this and there's so much hesitancy, we're going to start to pull this away from states. And we're going to start to pull this away from the states and send them elsewhere. So that looks like a situation where 6 months from now in the African-American community, around flu season, when the spike hits and people are more susceptible to get viruses like COVID, those resources are no longer free. The Legacy pop-up site and the Gateway pop-up site, which is actually the Gateway facility, is the largest pop-up facility in Northeast Florida.
Which is the federal government site, Gateway Mall.
Correct. And they actually have the resources to provide up to 3,000 vaccines daily.
And do you know, numbers-wise, sorry to interrupt, but do you know what, because I was looking at EWC site, they were getting several hundred sites and the numbers were as low as 18 a day.
So 3,000 that they're eligible and able to provide, on average, they're doing about 161.
They can do 3,000 a day.
Right.
But 161 is the number.
Correct. That's the average. And so people are like, well, whatever, right? I don't want to take it. I don't want it in my body. I don't understand it. Well, I would say there's been a lot of other vaccines, and I won't get too deep into the medical aspect of it because that's more Dr. James' job. But what about chickenpox? What about measles? What about mumps? What about the vaccine
rubella
that you have been taking and that you took throughout your childhood that literally has protected you? And there's certain people out there that don't even know what chickenpox is at this point, right? There's certain people that don't even understand what mumps is or what Ebola and some of these other viruses around the country, around the world that are killing people. And all it is at worst, a sore arm or maybe some fatigue. I would encourage people to really take a look at what's happening, because what will happen is this. The Black community, we already have less access to healthcare. Yeah. We're the most uninsured population in the US. We also have the highest percentage of chronic disease. So for a pandemic that is now no longer a threat for the majority of people and it's no longer being prioritized, it's harder to find a vaccine now. And so now this disease and this virus is running rampant in our communities, and it becomes an endemic, which means that it's not a problem for white people. It's not a problem for Asian people. It's not a problem for, more Hispanic folks. It's just a problem for us. So now not only are we dealing with chronic disease, obesity, high blood pressure, hypertension, now we have a pandemic style virus that's only affecting our inner city communities, our urban communities, because we're at the clubs, we're at the barbecues, we're at the pool parties, we're at the church events, not vaccinated. And then we start to get sick. and now you can't find the vaccine, or now you need insurance because the vaccine is $250, right? And you don't have access to insurance, and you never have, but you could have got it for free. And now it's a situation where your family is dying, your peers are dying. And I know that sounds morbid, and a lot of people might be looking at this like, oh, well, you're just trying to scare us. But if you look at the history and if you look at the present, Black men have a lower life expectancy than any other race in the United States. Fact. Black men have the highest percentage of obesity in any other race in the United States. Fact. So for any people that are asking those questions or that might think we're just talking, I challenge you to Google these facts. This is public health information that's coming from many reputable sources. And, you know, honestly, if we don't take the time now, when we see rich white people, rich Black people, it's not really a situation of color, right?
More classism.
It's an education, it's an access, it's an awareness issue. So if you're not going to take the time as an adult who has a child and has people depending on you, or has a mother that's sickly or might be elderly or senior, and Mother's Day is coming up, and you want to go hug up on your mom, but you want to go to the club the night before. So I catch you at one of these little spots tonight with no mask on, but then you want to go hug up with mom on the next day. You're putting her at risk. You know, and even if your mom has been vaccinated, it's not 100%, right? It's
you still need to have on a mask. Masking is still necessary. Yeah,
she's still vulnerable, right? So,
acceptable.
And so we want people to understand that it's bigger than myself, it's bigger than Dr. James, it's bigger than an individual. And if you have those questions and you're nervous, don't let an unanswered question be the reason you don't protect yourself, right? Don't let an unanswered question be the reason why you pass up on an opportunity for safety.
Absolutely. Let's get to some of the questions we have. I want to thank you, Elder Yates. I see you're watching. Thanks so much for supporting me, of course, and Dr. James and Mikhail Scott. An indelible thank you. Elder Yates is one of the elders with the African Methodist Episcopal Church. The question we have right now, if you tested positive in June 2020 and then again tested negative 14 days later, are you immune? Do you still need to get vaccinated? Now, the other question on Twitter was more about antibodies, but answer this question, Doc. What, do you still need it right then? Should you wait a while so that the inoculation stays in your body a little longer? What's the advice you have?
Tested positive in June 2020 and then tested negative 14 days later.
First of all, if I can step in this and give my non-medical opinion, where are you going? Where are you going that you going over and over again? I'll just ask you. Okay, go ahead.
So to answer that question, I would say yes, definitely you still should be vaccinated. The fact that you tested positive before, you have some natural, you know, like I said, you got some natural antibodies, some natural immunity there, but you'll still need to get that full protection. So this is really about being safe. So it's kind of like if you had a choice to get $50 or $200, who would take the 50? You know, like get as much protection, as much coverage as you can, because you wouldn't want to be in a situation where you contract COVID and you could have been vaccinated. And that's just what it boils down to. And
even if you had it, there's no danger, especially if you had it twice, because what science is telling me, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm looking at one of the journals of medicine that's now publishing studies about it. They're saying that there are concerns and side effects of actually having coronavirus that can last years or for the rest of your life.
And that's where I was going to next. Coronavirus, COVID has some really some lasting side effects that lay latent for some time. So you don't want to continuously put yourself and put your body in harm's way and at risk of those latent side effects, because the more you put yourself or the more you contract the COVID-19 virus, the more susceptible you become to those side effects, those long-term side effects that really affect some of our major organs.
Let's go to our next question, Kim Stanley. And thank you, Willetta, for that question. Kim says, one of my brothers will not get the shot, ex-military, trusts only a few people. I want to ask him again, but he's adamantly against it. Suggestions, please, gentlemen.
I would say if he was still in the military, they would definitely give it to him. The military is notorious. Actually, those are some of my best patients. The military guys, they come in, they just sit down. they'll sit down and let you shoot them because they always usually have a bad story about how, insensitive we were giving vaccinations in the military. But no, I will say, definitely try and get him to change his mind against it. Tell him it's nothing like the flu. Tell him it'll protect him just as the flu shot that he would have to get annually, or any other vaccinations that he would have to get to serve and be deployed in some of these countries outside of the United States of America.
and another thing I could suggest, because I don't know what his feelings of the military was when he was there, where he's at with it now. So even taking the military out of it, and the fact that at one point you had no choice, let him know now that he does have a choice. Let him know now how much you care about his safety, right, as his sister, and find an opportunity to approach him in a way that's non-combative, right? Find an opportunity to bring some facts to him that speak to how COVID has been damaging the Black community. Find some statistics that him as a military man, right, he has to be willing to accept the facts, right? People are all smart. People are all able to make educated decisions. So give him that opportunity and approach it in a way where it's not, hey, well, you need to come and get this because, you're going to hurt somebody. No. Don't do it like that. Just say, hey, I care about you. And I've been looking at these articles that are saying Black men are dying at a higher rate. You're unprotected. I'm reading these articles that are saying COVID rates are going back up again, and they will continue to rise as we go into the summer because viruses are more transmitted during that time. People are going to be more active. A lot of states, including Florida, are moving as if things are normal. There's a lot of actions that's being taken place to mitigate and remove some of the ordinances that protect folks with masks and things of that nature. And I would say while the vaccine is certainly helping people, from a safety perspective, we all have to continue to wear our masks and be as safely as we can, even if we have been vaccinated. It's a strong recommendation. But talk to him in that manner. Let him know it's about you caring, right? Not just about him, because if he leaves, you're affected, your family's affected. And that's how we have to look at these things.
So it's more about information as opposed to the embarrassment of, you ain't getting the vaccine? Why you ain't getting the vaccine? Or just try to inform.
We don't do vaccine shaming.
And I read something where it says only trust a few. Like, go and combat all the questions with cold hard facts. In addition to what I said, with the knowledge, with the things that can't be, refuted. The facts, the truth lies in the facts.
Right. And if there's a person that doesn't want, if there's a person that, and I just have to be honest, right? Because we're doing outreach and we see everybody from the persons that are huge no, get out of my face, to the people that are actually converting. Wow, you've given me some information that I didn't know, and I'm going to take this to the bank and I'm actually going to get vaccinated. That's what we've been doing, right? We've had Dr. James make calls where people are converted and they're saying, you know what, thank you. I've never heard a Black doctor give me this information. I didn't know there was a such thing as a Black doctor. Yeah. So when you look at it from that perspective, if you've got someone that you bring multiple scholarly articles or health-related articles, and you sit down and have a very calm and honest conversation with them, and they're still very much so against it, we do have to understand that people can make their own choice.
And respect that. Yeah, and what you said is being in the military is the problem, as you see real time. Thank you both. I really like the reminder. It's out of concern. Hope he can hear me. And Kim, we hope he can hear you too, because it's all about keeping the community as a whole safe.
And I would tell to her, in addition to that, just meet him with grace. Leave him with some grace. Even if he's not, if he doesn't commit to it now, he's hearing the conversation, he's hearing the facts. So it may be a situation where it might not happen now, but it may take place down the road.
Gotcha. Good advice. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's go to our next person that says the vaccination doesn't stop you from getting COVID. It just lessens how you get it. I'm a survivor of COVID-19. I'm steadily very tired. My memory's going away. She had COVID in July, down for 2 months. I've had clots in my lungs from having COVID. He said the vaccine is a no for me. And then she additionally says, if they don't have full research, how are y'all going so hard about it? My friend got the shot and had a slight stroke. What do you say to that?
So I'll say to that, well, a couple things. The first question was she contracted COVID and ended up, she said she had blood clots, correct?
Yeah, she said, according to her, what she said, she's had blood clots in the lungs. So she said it's a no for getting the vaccine for her. She said she's tired and the memory's foggy.
Right. So I mean, if it was me, and this is what I recommend, because like I said, COVID-19 has some of those lingering side effects, and unfortunately blood clots are one of those side effects. I have a good friend who had COVID-19. He had it actually at the same time as I, and just recently, a couple months back, he had those same blood clots. And for him, he took a very different approach. It was, man, I have to get the vaccine because I don't want to put myself back in harm's way to have these blood clots again. So for her, I would say trust the vaccine to prevent her from, contracting the virus again, or at least it's not 100%. Yes, I know, but it ups that efficacy. It's better than not having the vaccine and being just absolutely susceptible.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to fight here. We're trying to fight susceptibility. We're trying to fight, illness in the Black community. That's what we're ultimately trying to fight.
So I want to get to her question. She said something in the comments here. It says the vaccination does cause clots, and I want to make sure we are dealing with misinformation. That's one thing we gotta stop as a community. If the stuff is out there, no, the vaccine does not cause clots. There are some people that have developed blood clots, but from what I see, it's about the comorbidities. If there are comorbidities that these people have, that clots come. So let's stop the misinformation. If we got information, let's share it in an intelligent manner, but it doesn't just cause blood clots.
Right.
My question is, again, the next question, I guess she said, why are y'all going so hard about it? And I guess I want to know, I think it's important, but why, especially since, according to her, that we don't have full research. Now, we know even with EUA, which is emergency use authorization from Food and Drug Administration, there has to be some statistical data. So it's not all the research, but all medicine is a practice. All doctoring is a practice. So what do you say to her question? Why are y'all going so hard since they don't have all the data?
So, and I'll let Dr. James, I'll let him follow me up on this, but I would say we're going hard for it because, number one, there's a lot of people that say, well, there just hasn't been enough research done. We don't know what's going to happen in the long run. Okay, that could be true. But what we do know is that COVID is killing people now. And if you have a comorbidity, or if you have an immune compromised condition, or if you have any of the other chronic diseases that plague our community, you are more likely to catch COVID, and you are more likely to pass through COVID from studies and what they show, and you're less likely to have any of those adverse effects from the research shown right now. So it's not a gamble, it's science. And if you check out the studies and the research, they used African Americans in those studies, right? There are actually efforts that were done that actually incorporated HBCUs into some of these clinical trials so that our people were a part of that. So they understood how it would work within our bodies, just like they did in some of these other folks. So that's important for people to understand as well. And there was also an African-American woman at the helm of creating, one of these vaccines.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when you say, why are we going so hard for it? Because what's the other option, right? We just sit back and let the virus do what it has been doing, factually killing people, Black people at a higher rate. 105 million people have been vaccinated. They're living their lives. They haven't seen any long-term effects outside of the initial couple of days where you have those possible fatigue and some of those other minor slight flu-like symptoms. And they're living their lives and they're going on about their day, right? So when you're looking at the reality of it, that's just not the reality. And if you want to talk about years down the line, well, people have been getting vaccinated years down the line, and really all it's done from vaccine research and vaccine history is protecting people against these diseases. Right. You don't find very many articles about a vaccine being implemented after clinical trials and being authorized by these medical entities like the FDA, and then millions and billions of people just fall out and die, or they have these lasting conditions. That's not the case with vaccines. And you can do your research to see that. And I would recommend that people take that same approach with the COVID.
And it's not as if somebody asked you to, inject bleach.
Right. Yeah, and I would say in addition to that, just taking it more so from a healthcare standpoint and from a clinical trial standpoint, let's just talk about vaccines themselves. Most of the times when we're talking about vaccines and when we're studying vaccines, if the vaccine is going to have an adverse effect, it usually happens first 2 weeks of the vaccine. You see it, like the reactions happen fast because the vaccines are activating the immune system. So once that immune system starts to working, we see the adverse effect very soon. It's extremely rare that years and years and years pass and then we notice that a vaccine is causing some mainstream adverse effect. Another thing I want to hit on when we're talking about, because a lot of people say that, a lot of people talk about that the vaccines haven't been researched, fully researched, and I absolutely understand that. That's definitely a great point to make. But when we're talking about research and we're talking about the manner in which these clinical trials were set up, I believe the Pfizer trial had about 30,000. And the Moderna trial had about 40,000. I'm talking about humans, people. These are real people that were participated in both of these trials. And if we were to compare and contrast that, say, to a HIV trial that enrolls about 4,000, 5,000 people, do you see the vast difference there? If anything, this can be argued that this was studied in more individuals than most of our clinical trials. So that's just a bit. Then again, a bit of misinformation that gets out to the public.
Gotcha. All right, we do have a few other questions coming in from our team members online, and this is interesting. Kimberly says, "I think many people need to know the Tuskegee experiment was so devastating because care was withheld. Some hesitancy is because people believe that poison was given to those who had syphilis. My understanding from the Tuskegee experiment, correct me if I'm wrong, is that." People were given syphilis in some cases, but they also knew they had syphilis and they wanted to study the effects on the body, whatever syphilis would do with I think it was mercury treatment. When I was on Broadway 100 years ago or off Broadway, I did Miss Evers Boys. And so I studied it. That was what Miss Evers Boys was about. And I really studied it and understood it was more of the government not giving treatment so they can see how the body was affected. But this is not that, right?
As a graduate myself of Tuskegee University, I hold this dearly to my heart. And that's another reason why these types of things mean so much to me, because I graduated from Tuskegee. I understand the syphilis study. Every student that goes has to study it. But when you look at this situation, that the syphilis study alone, the Tuskegee experiment, it's two vast differences between those two. The Tuskegee experiment was targeted for Tuskegee University. Not Tuskegee University, Tuskegee, Alabama, predominantly Black, lower economic area. This COVID-19 virus, this is a pandemic. We'll say that again. It's touched every continent that's housed on Earth. So to say that this is like the Tuskegee experiment, it's a bit of a stretch. It's actually totally different. So definitely, I kind of like to combat that with that. Like the Tuskegee experiment was just what it sounds like, a experiment targeted and designed for Tuskegee, Alabama. Gotcha. This COVID-19 virus, we didn't have any control over where it went, where it touched.
It's just going.
And it has been the worst since the Spanish flu
of 1918. And what we see, and we're about to wrap things up, guys. I know you have to get ready for tomorrow and have other interviews, and of course, there's so much going on in the community. So we thank you for that. So we're going to wrap up in a second. But also the other thing is, when you look at COVID-19 and its vast effects, this is not something that hasn't happened. From looking back in the Black Plague and the Spanish flu, nearly every 100 years, there's a major pandemic in the world, right?
And in your defense, Rahman, it will be another one.
It will be another one. Absolutely.
Right. And there'll be a new vaccine that comes out.
And at that point, we may do the Star Trek hypo spray where I'm a Trekkie, so go ahead. Well, we're gonna have something a little better than that. Live long and prosper, my brother. Kapla. I speak Klingon. I'm sorry. I'm a Trekkie. I'm a nerd. All right. So I think we have I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I kind of want to wind things down. Here's the last question we want to ask from the audience as we move on. And thank you all for I mean, literally everybody's sharing this thing all over, and I appreciate it. We're going to talk again about what's going on tomorrow, and we'll go over that again. But our last question here from the audience, and it's man-made. Speak to it. Some say it's man-made, some say it's not. What say you? That's a big, I know we all looked to Dr. Bruce to see.
Oh, okay.
That's a huge one.
I didn't know you was queuing me up.
Whomever.
So yeah, yes, and it's man-made. That's funny. So I mean, so a lot of viruses. I don't know even if people know this. A lot of viruses are kept. We actually have them under lock and key, so to say. And they'll with like COVID and like most viruses, scientists, they utilize these viruses and test them in labs over time. Is it man-made? I can't speak. I can't say yes or no whether COVID-19 is man-made or not. But I will say that these viruses are tested over time to help develop different things like vaccines for us, so that we can actually utilize them, so that we can steer clear of public health crises. So it's a lot of dialogue around whether it is man-made, whether it's not man-made. I'll say that it's here and it's a real problem, and it's a problem that needs to be combated. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
I don't know why. I think I hit something. I don't care if it's a purple mice with green spots that made the doggone virus. It's here. Like, let's figure out how we're going to deal with it.
Yes.
Right. And that's the truth. That's the truth. At the end of the day, regardless of how it got here, how it came about, we know, and as humans, it's unfortunate we have short-term memory loss.
Yeah.
You know, at this point, Florida looks a lot different than it did last year. You know, we were all locked down, people were losing their jobs, people were dying, and now people are back to work, people don't have to wear masks, right? So it seems like, okay, everything's okay, we're back to normal, things are fine. That is not true, period. And if you're a Black person watching this, for you, it is even more important, because studies show you're dying more. Studies show you're at a higher risk. And you might be sitting here with a morbidity yourself, comorbidity. You might have one of these issues. You know, fortunately, I've been blessed, and I personally don't have a chronic disease that I deal with now, but it's in my family. My dad has hypertension, right? My mother has diabetes. My grandmother, you know, fortunately for her, she's an elderly though. She's 93. I haven't seen my grandmother in over a year plus, right? And so when you start to think about what does it really look like for us to get back to normal? What does it really look like for us to, as a people, protect ourselves and to really stand up and take initiative to know these things that are truly affecting us? Like if you just turn a blind eye to COVID and say, you're fine, you're not going to do this.
Yeah.
You're not going to take the time to research it. You know, what do I have to say to that? Please change your mind. You know, please, I challenge you to at least just research, to do some Google searches. And for all the questions you have for us, make sure that you're going to a reputable source, right? Johns Hopkins, right? That's one of the most prestigious institutions that's been following COVID. You know, the CDC, the FDA, and I get it, right? Some people, well, the government this, the government that. The government is prioritizing this right now because it is killing people. It's causing economic disarray. And it's causing one of the largest public health crises that anyone in this era or generation has ever seen, period. Yeah. Those are the truthful facts, right? You want to start talking to me about zombies, and you start wanting to talk to me about, you know,
microchips,
tracking and things. If they want to track you, they're tracking you with this.
Already.
You know? If they wanted to turn us to zombies, right? Like, I get it. World Star is entertaining. I get it. There's a lot of funny things out there, but virus is not one of them. And I really encourage people to just take it seriously. And if nothing else, you know, come check us out tomorrow. You know, come find me. Come find Dr. James. We don't do this as a joke, right? This isn't us just getting airtime. We'll be there personally to answer these questions as well.
Gotcha. We'll be talking about that. I want to get a couple other quick questions that are off topic, and then we'll go into when I wrap up. Real quick, Mikhail, got to ask you, you're the political guy. If you want to jump in, Dr. Bruce, feel free. Politics-wise, the legislature, what do you think? Are they going to do some more allocation of money for COVID vaccine? Real quick, what do you say? Yeah.
Well, so I would say this, right? I know personally that there's still a lot of federal dollars out there for COVID-19. outreach and for vaccination hesitancy. The Biden administration is making sure of that. But the way this all works is a state can accept or deny federal dollars for anything. So let's say you live in a red state or a blue state or a purple state. It doesn't matter. If your governor decides that they don't want to draw down federal dollars for COVID outreach and vaccination response, those dollars dry up. And so when those federal dollars dry up, those federal pop-up sites disappear. Those federal sites where you can go and get this for free, and the ones that you drive by every day, the ones that are only having 161 people show out when they could be doing 3,000, it's a waste of money. And there's a lot of money that is being put into this program. There's a lot of money that's being spent on COVID in general, from everything to emergency rental assistance, to mortgage assistance, to the COVID vaccine, right? COVID has done a lot of issues, you know, for small businesses. It's truly flipped our world upside down. And there are governors across the state, including here in Florida, that believe now that the vaccine has been presented that these
everything's over.
Are no longer needed, right?
Yeah.
And I would say from the standpoint of them saying, hey, the vaccine's available, you should get vaccinated, we don't need this anymore, that's where I stop it. I say the vaccine is available, you should get it, you should protect yourself. When it comes to masks, I highly encourage them, right? I think that shouldn't be a politicized issue, and it's just something that provides that extra safety. But from a governmental perspective, those dollars from the federal level is really what people are seeing in their communities. It's not necessarily as much state-funded initiatives. A lot of that money is coming down from the Fed, and then the states have the ability to allocate it how they see fit. And that's essentially what happened with us, right? They saw us fit because we were working in Virginia, and because we've worked with the Department and the Division of Emergency Management and many other state agencies around emergency management, right? We work when hurricanes come and hit, Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Michael. You know, who do you think is helping to get those dollars pushed out when a county has been hit with $2.5 million worth of damage, and now they're putting that into FEMA? Companies like Indelible are in the background reviewing that paperwork for communities, right?
And making sure it quickly gets in.
Pushed out quickly, right? That's the type of stuff that we're doing. So we're experts at this, and we're also just like the people watching, right? We look like you, we talk like you, we know what you're coming from, we know the same situation. So that's why we go so hard for it, because the dollars have never been there for our communities before. And now that they're here, we want to make sure that they.
And who can't trust a doctor with tats? I'm just saying, it's one of my boys. You know, doctor got tats. I trust him. You know. All right, I gotta ask you this. Let's wind things up. This is on again separate. The voting stuff. Mikhail, you're a legislative guy. Can you talk about it? I know Indelible is your other thing, but we got to talk about it. Florida's just got hit with some crazy voting restrictions. What's up?
I would say that you know, any type of movement that restricts people from being able to vote and vote freely, I'm definitely not in support of. Right? Like, I think it's more important for us to express and to utilize our democratic opportunities. Right? So I'm always an advocate for voting. I've always been a huge advocate. And, you know, I actually started working on my first political campaign back in 2014. And I had a chance to really learn what it looks like to be a political advocate, and not a political advocate, more a community advocate, to show people that by yourself, kind of like COVID, right? And like we said in the beginning, this is being ran like a political campaign, but it's not political. It's a public health initiative.
But if that's what makes things happen, run it however you need to, but get the word out.
Absolutely. So I look at it like this, right? One person voting for an elected official doesn't change the landscape. Just like one person getting the COVID-19 vaccine doesn't change the landscape. It takes a community, a Black community, to step up and get registered to vote. And if you're a felon and you've had those issues, or you don't have as much information about it, or maybe you've been disenfranchised and you feel like government isn't for you, I challenge you to go and just go through the process. Because if you've never voted, and you've never voted as a collective, you can't speak to what will happen from doing so. And so, just like the vaccine, we need groups of people to have herd immunity. We need our entire communities to protect themselves in order to not fall susceptible to this. Just like we need our entire communities to step up and be more understanding of what's going on in the political process. take more of a time to know what's going on the local side of government, because I know a lot of people get caught up in presidential administrations, but the person at your city council, your mayor, your local county commissioners, they're making the real decisions that affect you and that impact you. Is this dollars going to go towards a stadium, or is it going to go towards a park that, your family, your kids can utilize, right?
Yeah.
Are these dollars going to go towards building another expressway? Or are they going to go towards affordable housing, right? Those are the types of questions that get made and the decisions that get made on a local basis. Absolutely. And turnout rates for local races, generally speaking, are very poor.
I always say, man, street lights and potholes don't have party affiliations.
I'm telling you.
All right. Well, I would like to say again, and we've had some great responses from everybody. Thank you. We're going to pitch in just a moment, but I want to say thank you to Dr. Bruce James and Mikhail Scott from Indelible Solutions and Vax 904 for being experts. We'll give information about what they have going on tomorrow. But guys, thank you so much for being a part of the experience.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Good to see you both. And for all of you, thank you guys for tuning in. What's important is that we understand that the coronavirus is something that is really taking our community by storm. So if we don't do what we have to do to put into changing things, then we are a part of the problem. And so tomorrow at the Master's Touch Ministries, 4510 Sutel Drive in Jacksonville, Florida, is where Indelible Solutions and Vax 904 will invite all of the questions you have. Maybe some of you weren't as comfortable with asking questions here live on social. All you got to do is show up there tomorrow at the Master's Touch Ministries. They can talk to you one by one and give you the information that you need to be a part of what's happening and what you can do to stop the spread. So I want to say thank you to, again, Dr. James, as well as Mr. Scott. Thank you to Tracy Davis and the rest of the elected officials in Jacksonville. I know Congressman Al Lawson, and I know Audrey Gibson's been at the forefront, former Democratic leader Mia Jones in the House. Just a great deal of elected officials who've come together for our community to make sure if the vaccine is something that you want, you get the information, but you also have access to it. So thank you. Don't forget, tomorrow you can join Indelible. They will be at the Master's Touch Ministries, 4510 Sutel Drive. We'll make sure to leave those details. Now, if you want to register to get the vaccine, go to vax904.com. You'll find those details on my website as well as on my social channels. But if you go to vax904.com, you can sign up there for tomorrow. On Facebook, you can find them in their Facebook page at JAX904. That's JAX 904 on Facebook. Please go like, share, and subscribe to the page, and make sure you share it with other people. But here's the main thing that we want to leave you with. Regardless of what you decide to do, you need to really try to get involved and educated. Whether you decide to take the vaccine or not, being educated is what's most important. Thank you so much for joining me for the Rahman Experience. Hope to see you here next time. And remember, this thing ain't going away unless we do the stuff we need to make a difference. Know that I love you. I'll see you soon. And don't forget, you can always stop by my social channels. Next time on the Rahman Experience.
Russell, what a play by Bill Russell!
I just arrived to get my COVID shot. And this is one shot I won't block.
Gratitude to a great ball club for courageous efforts.
No Celtics were harmed during my shot. Let's do this together. To learn more about vaccines, visit cdc.gov.
The world is talking about coronavirus, but it's hard to know what to listen to. We have answers to your questions like, who's most at risk for coronavirus? People over 65. People with underlying medical conditions like heart disease, chronic lung disease, asthma, diabetes. People undergoing cancer treatment. And people with weakened immune systems. What should you do if you or a loved one is at higher risk? Avoid close contact with people. Avoid crowds. Stay home if you can. Wash your hands frequently. Learn more ways to protect yourself and others at coronavirus.gov. Together, we can help stop the spread.
This week's The Rahman Experience is brought to you by the Jacksonville Free Press newspaper, bringing you quality urban news for more than 30 years. P&P Nutrition and Supplements. Want your summer body? Go to pmpnutrition.com. They'll get you exactly where you need to be. Heart SEO, internet marketing and web design for those who are ready to make their business soar. HeartSEO.com. And now, one of the hottest podcasts in the country. It is the Rahman Experience.
Just like on the earth, through death comes life.
There is something in the atmosphere of Edgewater College.
What about vaping and the effects on the lungs? It was a symbol of we can.
Rahman was a man of the city, you hear me?
You're inside the Rahman Experience.
It's the Rahman Experience.
The Rahman Experience.
The knowledge that he dropping, most dismiss and make you curious.
And we can't mess this up, cause you know he gon' be furious.
He bring the news to you, cause it's the truth, ain't no stopping it. Say you didn't know, well here's the proof coming from
Rahman Johnson, ain't no straight out of Compton. Duval County with that weight that we rockin'. Now you tuned in
to the Rahman Experience.